If you got I'm a comic book artist. I do go to a lot of comic cons. You go to cons too, like Crypticon, horror cons. There's cons for everything. So if you're going to talk about a sub kind of like a Pez culture con kind of thing, and then you mix in a little bit of a outsiders and all that, I'm in.
The amount of political intrigue is astonishing in this film.
Right.
So
it's right up our alley. And we're going to talk about a movie. It's available on Netflix.
Yeah.
That didn't get a lot of it. It missed my radar.
Yeah, completely missed me as well. Saddle up with some candy of a certain brand name as we talk the Pez Outlaw. And welcome back to the show. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
Hey, I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast. Thanks for watching. Thanks for finding us. And for our loyal fans, thank you for continuing to support the show. Hey, you can follow the show on Twitter and on Instagram. We do have a Patreon. Check that out for some great deals to tell us what movies we should review in the future. Both Kyle and I are members of the Minnesota Film Critics Alliance. Check out the webpage for critics' reviews as well as ours. And today we're talking about a documentary from 2022, last year, Pez Outlaw.
Yeah, so the Pez Outlaw is the stranger-than-fiction tale of Steve Glue, a man who smuggled thousands of rare Pez dispensers from Europe into the U.S. throughout the 90s, and his arch-nemesis, the sinister President, who vowed to take him down.
All right, so I know there's a lot of people who like to collect these Pez. It's like a little bit of a decorative, it's a little, not really chic. I'm looking for a word that you're probably going to find better than me. But it's kind of dancing around. It's kind of cute. It's kind of harmless kind of things. But then you realize, watching this movie, there's an underground that's just ferocious.
Yeah, it felt to me like when you see those like rare, like, again, I'm a movie collector, so when you find these like rare DVD sellers, especially at conventions, you'd find out of print things for like $80 and you're like, I have to have this. You're probably going to watch it once. Like with Pez, like, I have to have this. Are you ever going to eat anything out of it? No.
Right. It's I gotta find the ROM comic book because they're hard to find. Nobody really gives a crap about them. But for me, I want to find them because they're hard to get and hard to look for because it was so trash and people trashed them. It's hard to find them now because it wasn't really celebrated when it came out of the time. It was like a subculture. So Pez, popular in the late 80s, I would say in the early 90s. Mm-hmm. This takes place in the mid 90s where I think it was kind of like the peak of kind of Pez collecting.
Yeah, I think we were about to hit the Pez downfall and the rise of the Beanie Babies, if you will. We were in that kind of fluctuation where like the end of this era was kind of closing in. It's interesting to have something that's been so part of your life for so long. I think, I grew up with Pez dispensers. They were given out as gifts. It was always one of my stocking, I think, during Christmas time. Santa seemed to know I was into Pez.
And you don't have them anymore?
I don't really know if I have them anymore. I looked around in my house to find them, and I couldn't. But like it was such a part of my childhood and my youth. And to know that there was this sinister backstory. I love these larger-than-life tales. I always love, like, a very different film. Black Klansman is a kind of movie where it's like they're kind of reminding you the entire time, oh my God, this actually happened. Oh my God, this was real.
Yes.
And yet playing up the absurdity of it, that's kind of how Pez Outlaw felt.
And it kind of, with that movie, it kind of tied in current events as well.
Yeah, there maybe isn't any current events around Pez.
But before I get to my review, I would like to, if you like King of Kong, I think you will like this movie. There's a lot of same threads. There's a lot of the DNA about this because everybody knows what a Pez is.
Yeah.
But there's a deep, sinister subculture swimming about with what we think above the surface. It's a kind of arcade, like, nostalgic and friendly. But there's a deep, cutthroat area of this that I think is kind of, if you like King of Kong, you definitely like Pez Outlaw.
Yeah, because in both those films, I mean, in this one, of course, with Pez, and that film with the Donkey Kong arcade game, they are the wizard, but the film is about the man behind the curtain. It's about pulling back that and seeing like how absolutely absurd the behind the scenes of something that we just saw as like a quick little moment in our lives.
Yeah, and then we're following Steve Glue.
Yep,
he's kind of named himself from a blog on Pez Outlaw, recanting his story. But you also interviewing other people, networking, and then you get different viewpoints that are kind of skewed. Understand he's a little bit embellishing the story up. A lot of people are like, no, that didn't happen. So much so like the King of Kong. But you have a one tail, but you also have, like, you need a nemesis, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to build this nemesis and this friction that it's a very interesting, entangled story.
Yeah, this is the kind of documentary that I'm surprised that I know the film just came out in 2022 on Netflix, but I'm surprised that we haven't already gotten the rights snatched up for a mega Hollywood version. Because I just have to assume that like the story is so silly and so absurd that you could see it really playing out in real time.
Right.
It reminds me a lot of, for the fans of the show that know I'm a huge fan of the show Community. There's a whole thing where they do an underground stealing chicken fingers from the school's cafeteria disguised as a mafia movie. That's kind of how this one felt. It was a political intrigue film.
Espionage
About
and Cold
Pez.
War and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Right? So if you didn't know, I'll just give you a little basic. Pez International, which is based primarily in mid-Europe, which had manufactured all the Pez's, but didn't have distribution rights in Pez United States, and a lot of what they made at Pez International got rejected. So people would try to find those Pez dispensers that were not distributed in the United States and sell them at cons, kind of black market style. But it's not really black, it's kind of a gray loophole because Pez did not register the trademark for trafficking at the border.
Yeah, there was kind of this is only like nebulously illegal, but not really. We can't charge, but like what he's doing is wrong to the company. It's a whole like web of intrigue that's going on.
Explain it very clearly, because they didn't trademark their product at the border that you could just bring them in by the truckload.
Who's stealing those? Who's taking those in? And again, I mean, the one guy who said that he worked for the company for 15 years when he said that, well, obviously, like, we assumed people would probably go to International, they'd see the Pez places, they'd buy a few of those ones and bring them back and have them as gifts for family members. Not a big deal. He goes, but no one expected someone to be bringing duffel bags through until it happened.
And this is like early 90s. We didn't have the Berlin Wall down yet. It's pretty much still in the Cold War kind of a mentality.
Well, yeah, there was that whole idea of like we're moving through
checkpoints.
some of these concerning countries that maybe aren't big fans of the U.S. right now. And that's maybe part of why they were letting this guy get away with it. It was kind of an FU to the U.S. Pez distributor.
I think there was a lot of it.
Get their stuff in.
And like, hey, I'll give you at the checkpoint. Hey, I'm selling this illegally in the United States, and here's a 10 spot. Oh, okay, move along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's again, it's that small scale illegal activity with the large scale ramifications.
Yeah. It's that small scheming to kind of a little bit of entrepreneur, but it's illegal. That we all find fascinating here in the United States. So, what makes this interesting is the characters, too. They're all fascinating. They're all flawed, but they're up front with their flawed.
That's the thing, too, is they're fully willing to admit some of the things that they were dumb about. Or even just having Steve and his son portraying dumb Americans when they leave the country because people will let dumb Americans get away with a lot. It's just because they like to know that they're superior.
Right. You just dress like an idiot out in Europe and look. I'm looking for a Pez factory.
Yeah. The idea that these two guys would drive up to the front gate and just say, "Can we come in?" and just let them in. Again, I keep seeing these scenes like playing out in my head with this. The way that the film is made with the real interviews and then kind of the fictionalized footage.
Yeah, it's like ID Network.
Yeah.
Reenactments.
Yeah, my wife watches all those like ghost stories, and they always do like the recasting with someone else and they tell the ghost story while it's interviewed the person.
Yeah.
And I kept seeing that happening, but I was like, these guys should be doing the ghost shows because the way in which they performed it, I kept thinking, wait, is that so and so? Did they get this guy to play himself? Like the kind of way in which they fictionalized it for the film worked pretty well.
Yeah. So, like I said, it's very fascinating to find out, especially like when you watch documentaries, that there is a subculture or a community or something event that's you think that you're kind of aware of, but you're not.
Yeah.
There's a subsurface entanglement going on.
It reminded me of the competitive puzzling that we had to do some research into for the film Puzzle.
Yeah, Puzzle. There's a competitive puzzle.
And then finding out that I'm Facebook friends with a competitive puzzler who is like number 4 in the nation. Like, I just didn't know this about this person.
All I know about competitive puzzling, you got to get your borders down first.
Yep.
And then you got to organize colors.
Yeah, and speaking of borders, crossing the border from the Europe into the U.S. with duffel bags.
During the Cold War. With duffel bags.
I think maybe that's my favorite sequence in the film is because the TSA guys are obviously looking for drugs. And I really wish we could have interviewed
sneaking other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're looking for like the big ticket items. I would have loved to have interviewed someone who actually like came across these bags of Pez and didn't know what to do with them. Because there's even the shock on their level too that they say you can't do this, and they're like looking through the who's got the copyrights for it, and they come across that Pez doesn't. Like, there's all these ways in which the narrative kind of changes and alters what you think, because you think he's just going to be performing illegal activity, but it's kind of like these loopholes and these ways he finds out around them.
So the whole catalyst, the start, the product, the whole thing we're talking about, the title of the movie is Steve Glue. He kind of much blogged this about the events 10 years after the fact, so this all transpired about 94, 95, and then you start wanting a blog, and then people caught on to kind of, understand, read the blogs and fascinating. So he's at the core of the whole spiderweb, but you can't trust his account. There's a little bit of embellishment about his point of view.
Yeah.
As well as you talk to his rivals, as well as what he dubbed his arch nemesis, the president, or Pezdiment of Pez in USA, which is McWhinney or something like that. But like he's right at the end. I did something scheming. I did something like no one remembers that guy, but people are going to remember me.
Yep.
Which is kind of a little bit egotistical, but he's actually right.
Yeah, like his life meant something to some people. And I think that that's something that we all look for in our lives, is that when we go, there will be one person changed by us. And obviously for most family people, it is their children, it is the people that will grow up around them. For most of the people, like for people that don't have, like I don't have kids, so like I hope that I changed one person's life by the end of mine and that I had an impact. I think a lot of us search for that in our lives, and it sounds like Steve was a guy who was working a crappy job. He read Tom Clancy all the time, so he just wanted to have something magical happen, and didn't get that collecting cereal boxes, but he found a way in to a
that was another thing. He
life.
collected cereal boxes, which I would rather be. I told my wife I'm interested in seeing that collection for the Pez, because if you're collecting cereal boxes of the 80s and 90s, I want to see those.
My brother has a bunch of the Wheaties boxes with his favorite sports players, and I think he still has the Wheaties inside the box. I didn't go that far on mine. The only box I have cereal wise is a Mario one, because you can actually scan it in a video game. So.
Right. So if you like collecting, you like this kind of this undercurrent, point of view of we think we know what's going on, but this is what's happening. The scheming and mentality, and it's if you go to cons and stuff, you kind of like this kind of stuff. These are kind of these kind of people.
Yeah.
Who go to toy conventions and all this stuff. I meet them all the time. They're fascinating. They're eccentric. They're exaggerating. Of course, I'm wearing this. Yeah, but. That's what the whole fan base is.
But everyone has that one thing they're kind of weird about. Like the thing that they're weirdly fascinated by. And some of them, they're more obvious. Like, again, I love movies. People go into that basement of mine and they see this wall-to-wall movie collection. And they're like, yeah, this guy loves movies. It's obvious. Like, going into your basement and we see these wall-to-wall comic books everywhere. I get it. But, like, there's also beyond the two of us, which have, I think, two of the more okay in the public eye fascinations, to go behind and see cereal box collectors and Pez dispenser collectors and even the guys, like what they interviewed that guy at the beginning of the film that said, you're doing a film about Steve? Like, this isn't going to work. No one cares about that. By the end of it, you do.
Yeah. So up next is we're already kind of leaning to it, our review of Pez Outlaw. Overall, I think it's a wonderful, delicious kind of a documentary.
Yeah.
I don't think it'd be in like my top 10. It's fascinating. I was far more enthralled than I thought it would be. I thought it'd be just kind of quaint and silly, but there is some kind of deep themes into this. You get to talk to his struggles with his family life and then his wife and everything. So I give it a really strong effort, but there's a lot of it that kind of I wanted a little bit more. Then I'm thinking that we can't get, or we're just kind of glossed over.
I think there's a case of, because the truth has been marred by perspective after this many decades, and it's become almost larger than the tale itself. There's only so much you can dive into. I'm sure that also dealing with a company like Pez, who doesn't want to give you people to have these conversations. They don't want to talk about this guy. So it does mar the other side of things. You're only talking to the guy who's not with Pez anymore. You're not talking to the president. You're not talking to those kind of people.
Including the Pez International, talking to people who used to rent it.
Yeah, it's not people that are in the business anymore of that. And so that will mar it a little bit. I will say this. I was far more enticed and interested in this film than some of the Academy Award level documentaries I've been watching this season. Okay. A lot of the ones that have been up for nominations. I don't think this would ever have a chance to get in for a nomination, but I do like the absurdist documentaries, the ones that really peel back kind of a weird level of pop culture.
It usually happens. Some of my, what I regard as some of the best documentaries never get on Academy's radar.
Yeah.
And it's almost, it's a laughable statement. We talk about it for years, that if you get nominated for a documentary Academy Award, it's like, well, you must not be that good.
I mean, well, there's some years like, what is it, Exit from the Gift Shop, which was, when I saw it, I immediately said, oh my God, this is incredible. I can't wait to see this on the Academy Awards. And I'm almost certain it won that year, and I was like, fantastic, great. But then you have things like Won't You Be My Neighbor, where it's like the obvious choice that it's going to get nominated, and it gets completely passed over. It happened this year with Goodnight Oppie, which was about the Opportunity mission to Mars and the 2 rovers that went there. I saw it at the Twin Cities Film Festival. It was amazing, and I was like, this is obviously going to be up for Best Documentary. There's no chance it won't be.
We just don't know what litmus test they use at the Academy Awards, and we don't know what is they're seeing.
I think the Academy group who nominates, the documentary filmmaker group who nominates, tends to lean serious with a lot of these documentaries, and especially in recent years, a lot of them have been politically driven or dealing with injustice or dealing with, and like that's great that they're doing that.
Because largely, when you did documentaries in '80, that got ignored.
Yeah. And so it's great that they're doing that now, but I do wish that there was a bit more of like, yeah, here's a fun one and here's a serious one, but sometimes they're so dour. Yeah. And maybe it's because I'm watching them all in sequence right now for the Academy Awards, but like, it's really hitting me that I just wish there was like a fun one like this in there.
It is so fun. It is fun. It's enthralling. Hey, I enjoyed it. I almost got the popcorn out to watch it. Yeah. It's kind of rare for a documentary. And you're right. I think Academy likes to have that serious tone for what they celebrate for documentaries. Yeah. This has some serious elements to it, but it understands what it is.
Yep.
It's kind of kooky. We obviously can live without knowing what this is going about. Mm-hmm. But it's fascinating to know. This is why we like documentary. We find out something we had no idea existed.
Yeah. That's the kind of the peculiar thing is like I'll watch documentaries about like, I'll watch like In Search of Darkness, 16 hours of horror movie discussion, which is all about mostly movies I've loved. But then I also like the scenes in those movies where they talk about the movies I've never heard of. And it's kind of like I like the validation of something I really love. But then I also like
where does this come from?
Right. Yeah, this is something I immediately finished this documentary, and I texted my dad, who was a Pez collector in the early '90s. Not like a heavy one, but he'd like grab someone.
I had a lot of friends in high school that they had like 5 or 6.
I texted my dad, and I was like, "You got to go on Netflix real quick," because he's always looking for like the next movie he's gonna love. This is not a movie that's going to appeal to someone who doesn't maybe understand the appeal of Pez or didn't grow up during that time period. Right. But if you're around during that time, it's so fascinating that I like texted him, and then I texted my brothers who maybe don't have any care about it in the world, and I was like, you guys got to watch this. And it's nice that it's 85 minutes. It's super quick. It's super, crunchy. And it's just enthralling all the way through.
Documentaries, I appreciate people who film documentaries and create them, because you have to film what you get. You can't really stagey. There's a lot of reenacting.
Yeah.
And you can do a lot of manipulating with reenacting. But through interviews and through what you have to navigate of the right questions people are going to answer and all that stuff, it's still enticing. And you have to get, this is what we have. I would say what's the weakest point is kind of the editing of it. It doesn't really have the right, it's kind of jucky because they want a serious tone, then jumping back. I would say, but that's all the crux of documentary is the editing. Yeah, like I want to say, you only get what you can't really reenact what you're filming. Yeah. But editing is the crux of documentary. I would say there's a lot of times where there's a lot of slowness to it where I would put it somewhere else.
Yeah, there's a little bit. I mean, that's you're at the will of the subject and not the will of the filmmaker. You'll notice documentaries, most of them don't have a screenwriter, because most of them, like you don't have the opportunity to tell your story. You're telling someone else's story, and whether or not you know enough about that. We've seen a number of documentaries where the films, takes a left turn really quick, and like all of a sudden something changes in the narrative, and the documentarian just has to figure it out and work with it. And those are sometimes the most engaging, because even the documentarian is an audience member at that point. This feels like this story was laid out through interviews, and they had to find a way to kind of up it. I don't really care usually for films that do the fake, filming, the fake scenes and stuff with actors.
It's intentional. It's fun. It's supposed to be funny.
Yeah. But because this one is absurd, I'm letting it pass. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So overall, it's not what do we go? One of the top 20 great movies of last year, documentaries. No. But it's enticing. It's fun, and it's what I like about documentary films.
Yeah. If I were to put together a list of best documentaries from last year, I would maybe put this as number 3.
Yeah, I would be very close to Oppie.
Yeah, because I really loved Goodnight Oppie, and I absolutely loved Navalny, which was up this year for Best Documentary Feature. It's an enthralling story, and it is one of those serious ones. But then after that, I can have something playful like Pez Outlaw. Like, those are my list of the films that I would say, like, those documentaries really captured me this year. No, not my top 10 of the year, but something that if you're looking for a nice 85 minutes on Netflix, you could spend 85 minutes looking to watch something on Netflix.
Because usually sometimes documentaries get a bit more, they're notorious for being a bit longer than they should be.
Longer than they should be. And also, Netflix is not going to tell you about this one. They're terrible at marketing.
Right. So I had to, it did come up on my, you had to go search engine.
Yep. So I guess we should thank Tyler Prawl, our patron, for picking this film as well, because this is absolutely one of the ones I never would have clicked on. Yeah. Maybe I would have watched it even if I found it, but I doubt I could have even found it on Netflix's ever-expanding world of mostly terrible films. Yeah.
So, have you seen Pez Outlaw? My God, I'm sure you haven't. Stop this tape, go watch it, and then put a comment down below.
Yeah, let us know what you thought about the film, and maybe some of your favorite documentary hidden gems that you found on streamers, because there's probably quite a few that we haven't talked about and we'll never know about without you.
Automat, it was a great one. The Automat, Mel Brooks's documentary.
Oh, yeah.
I love that one.
I remember the Automat coming up on multiple, like lowest grossing films of the week on the shows I watch for box office, because it only played in one theater for like a month and then it was gone. Anyway, let us know your favorite documentaries that you found amidst the wild, and your thoughts on the Pez Outlaw down below. We want to thank you guys for watching the episode. Please like and subscribe. They don't cost you anything, but they really help to support the channel, and we really do appreciate it. You can also find all of my film reviews over at goatfilmreviews.com.
You can find my show, the St. Paul Filmcast, anywhere to find podcasts, and my God, we don't have any dispensers to show.
Yeah, send us your dispensers.
Yeah, take a picture of it.